Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. And what is this video about? Well, can you guess? Yes, it's time for part 3 of Build a Beat Repeat DJ Looper in Max for Life. And picking up from where we left off last time, I'm going to open it up and try and add some more things and just generally try and make it more cooler and develop it. So last time we sort of tidied up the interface a little bit and added a option to kind of ping pong around the sample. Let's just have a little listen to what it can do. So just turn that down a little bit and then we can turn it on here. And then it's just going to start looping at specific points in the buffer. We can change the size at how much it loops. And we can go forwards and backwards in different places and different sizes and stuff like that. It's a little clicky. It's a little clicky. We might have to work on that. You know, this is going to take some time. You know, you can't just do this stuff overnight. It doesn't just appear. You've got to work. You've got to put the hours in. Anyway, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to open it up and I'm going to try and maybe add some cool new things in there. Let's see what we can do. Oh my gosh. Right, look at all this stuff. So this bit, yeah, this is what we did last time. This is our kind of reversey stuff. And I thought maybe what I would try to do today is try and do like a kind of pitch modulation, like a kind of scratch sound, but I know it's going to be tricky because of the way that I've sort of, the foundation for how this works won't lend itself nicely to doing what I had in mind, but I'm going to try anyway. So yeah, what I'm going to do, if you'll remember that we're using a phaser to read through the wave tilde object, which has some data recently recorded into our buffer with this count object, which is counting into a poke, which is poking into the buffer, and then the wave reads from the buffer and the phaser controls the wave, and all these other bits make the phaser behave in certain ways so that as it reads back from the wave, the sample gets played in various ways. So we've got one way to play it forwards, and we've got one way to kind of make it go forwards and then backwards. And what I'm going to do now is try and make it sort of go pew, I don't know. Let's see. So we can use some of the stuff we used before, namely the modulo object to choose our loop size and the plus object to offset around the position. So we're using the phaser to ramp between 0 and 1, which effectively means that we can ramp through the entirety of the sample. And if we divide those ramps into smaller bits and move them around, we can jump to different points in the sample. Just giving you a little recap if you needed reminding. So let's make a modulo object here. Let's just say 0, and let's make a plus object and let's just say 0. And let's just try and make the starting point. So we're going to modulo our phaser. So let's connect our phaser to our modulo here. And we're going to modulo that by the number set by this here. So I'll just take that 16, put that in there. And then we're going to add to that with this number. Yeah, this number here. So if I go down to my selector and add a third inlet, because we're using this selector to switch between all the different playbacks, and I'll go into my live tab here and add another item to the list. Forwards ping pong. Oh, this is just pitch. I'll just call it pitch for now. It's just going to play with the pitch, do like a pitch modulator. I'll call it pitch mod. That'll do. Let's go back in here. Pitch mod. Okay, let's have a look at our live tab. Yeah, that's all fine and working. So, and at some point we're going to need to put the quantize in there as well. I'm trying to remember to do that. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's just start by just recording something into the buffer from Ableton. Oh my gosh, that sounds nice. Okay. Okay, so this is our pitch mod section. Turn that down a bit. This is our pitch mod section, but we haven't applied any pitch modulation yet. So how are we going to do that? Well, I thought what I would do is that if we actually look at what's going on here, where we've moduloed our ramp, we've effectively taken our phaser and just made it kind of a smaller version of itself. So if we looked at our top phaser here, we'll see that the top phaser is ramping from 0 to 1 over the course of a bar. But what we've done is we've kind of just made it wrap around itself, inside itself, by a certain number. But if we were to, take that and simply multiply that by another number, let's say multiply it by 1 for now. If I was to change that, then we're going to increase the size. Whoopsie. So we're going to increase the size of it. So if I increase it really big like that, it's going to get much bigger and then eventually go off the scope because we're multiplying it by 11. We want to keep within the range of 0 to 1. So we're going to be working in quite a small range. But this is good because a lot of MSP signals work between -1 and 1, or sometimes 0 to 1, like the phaser does. So if I was actually to put that multiply object in between the modulo and the plus, which is doing the offsetting, and we start this up again. And if I create a number, floating point number here, and play around with this, you can hear how the pitch has changed. We can go into stupid pitches, but we don't want to do that. We want to do something that's a bit more... Ooh. Yeah, so basically I'm going to use something to kind of do all this business for me. Oh, we're going backwards now. That's nice. It's a little clicky, but we'll work that out as we go. So what can I do? Well, I thought maybe I could take something like a cycle. A cycle will just go between -1 and 1 at a specified frequency. If I give it a frequency, there we go. It's going to go up and down like that. Beautiful sine wave there. But we're going to need to make some changes to that because that is cycling between -1 and 1, and we don't want that. We want to work between 0 and 1. So we're going to have to do some things to get that within the range that we want. One of the interesting things about cycle is that its phase can be driven by a phaser. So if I took a phaser here and plugged that into the right inlet and then changed the frequency of the phaser, then it's going to change the frequency of the cycle, which is quite nice because then we can use something like, like a timing syntax, like we can say 16th notes. Hang on, phaser go 16th notes at lock 1, and now that doesn't look like a 16th note to me. This is bullshit. What's going on here? Oh, the transport's not going. There we go. All right, so now we can see there that that cycle is phasing because of the frequency of the phaser. So what if I took the modulo signal that we're using to slice our phaser into bits and use that to set the phase of the cycle? Let's see what happens. Nothing right now until I start the transport. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's try a different position here. You see how it's making these weird shapes? That's because the moduloed phaser is being reset. As we modulo the phaser and cut it into bits, as the top phaser goes back round, then whatever division or whatever modulo we've done, that phaser will get reset as well. So I thought maybe I could use this for something interesting. I mean, already those shapes look interesting by themselves, but I mean, if I was to plug that straight in now, this is what we get. So we're already getting some scratchy fun. Oh, that's glitchy. So the reason why stop, shut up. Shut up. Stop it. Right. So the reason why that's glitching out is because we're going into the negative territories of beneath 0 into -1 territory. We don't want to do that. So actually, I'm just going to simply take the absolute value of this cycle, and then I get this, which is kind of fun. So what happens if I just plug that in? If I multiply the signal between the modulo and the plus with this, we're going to get some pitch stuff. Let's see what we get. All right. That sounds kind of a bit much. Am I doing this right? Goodness me. Right, yeah, this is going to be pretty noisy, cacophonous racket whilst I try and work out what I'm doing. So this is our top phaser, that's our top phaser, this is our modulo, that's our modulo. So why, that's interesting. That's coming from this number to do the offset, same as that one. That one's coming from that one. Okay, I'm curious to see why that hasn't worked as well as I thought. Interesting. So why, when the phaser is at... Let me just maybe just recreate this cycle a little bit. Okay, something happened there. I'm not sure what. Maybe I just needed to reinstantiate, reload that cycle. All right, now let's see what that sounds like. So it's quite aggressive, you know, but it sounds good on that one. And then we can jump to different positions and we get the same sort of pitch modulation pattern, which is kind of nice. So I can go to... On that one though, it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference because we're not sloping very far, but that sounds good. That's kind of got a cool backspin kind of vibe about it. These ones aren't going to do anything. They're just too fast. So there are maybe some things that we could do to that. I mean, we can always sort of kind of process the shape of the cycle in other ways, perhaps by I don't know. I mean, if we could simply multiply it by a larger number and see what that gives us. But then maybe clip it around -1 to 1, and we get nothing. Oh yeah, so what happens there is as the cycle goes out of range, it gets clipped. That doesn't actually sound that good, to be fair. What about like a hyperbolic tangent? Let's see what that gives us. So that just allows us to change the shape ever so slightly. And the more we multiply the cycle before it goes into the hyperbolic tangent, we get different speeds and different shapes and stuff like that. Oh, and nothing at all. But on some of these numbers, it's just not going to sound as good. Yeah, I mean, that's such a small number, such a small ramp size that this isn't really going to make much difference. It kind of sounds better on larger ones. So I'm probably not going to mess around with that, but I just thought I'd sort of put that in there in case you're curious about screwing around with doing these types of things. I think I might just leave it with this sort of thing. So that is our kind of pitch modulation bit. Okay, that's all looking kind of nice. Eventually this is all going to need cleaning up. I'll just do a little bit now. Let's just sort of get this all kind of looking fairly easy to understand. So, all right, so I'm going to put that there with my ping pong thingy, and let's have a little listen to it, see how it all works. It's all kind of working okay. Okay, that's sounding good. Whilst I'm here, maybe I could zoom out a little bit and then zoom back in and maybe address this thing with the I want to quantize the selection. So I'm going to bring all this stuff and this stuff down much further, even further than that. give myself some space. This is getting a bit messy. Right. And I want to use the same quantizer that I use, the sample and hold, to predetermine the selection in which I change between the various playback types. So let's take, well, I think we just need this. This is all we need. Let's take that. And then I'll swap this out for a signal. It's going to need to be plus what? So I'll do the signal first, signal 1. And then I'll add 1 to, whoops. Yes, let's add 1 to that. And let's see what that gives us on the way out. Let's use a number here and see if this is working. So if I start the transport and change this, it's going to go to the different number on the next bar. Yeah, let's try 16th note, 8th note. Okay, that looks like that's working. Okay, so I'm simply going to take this. Let's move this over here. I'm simply... That's a little bit like... The other day, I walked past my door and I was wearing such a baggy jumper that my sleeve got caught on the door handle and my entire arm was pulled, left behind. You don't need to know that, but I'm just basically saying what I did just then. And Max was very much like that. Right, let's put, oh my God, I've just done it again. Right, let's put that in there. Now let's see how this works. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a little bit carried away. Right, so that is all starting to look and sound good to me. We've got, where's that going? All right, okay, that's, all right, maybe that should stay down there. I think a linear flow path is a nice thing to be warier of, be more wary, be warier of that, because Max, generally the flow of data often tends to go from top to bottom. So, you know, I always sort of tend to sort of start up here and work my way down until I get to the plug out. Okay. Whilst I'm here, why don't I save this as part 3? Save as. I don't want to save it there. I'm going to save it in the project. Here we are. Let's save it as part 3. And whoop, little pop there. Okay, and then indeed, let's go back to Ableton and let's save this as part 3. Save as part 3. And then I'll quickly just do, I won't do collect all and save yet. That might be a bad idea. Right, okay, so maybe I can think of some more things to add. Maybe we can get a little bit more bizarre and granular with this. I don't know how, but let's see. Let's add a 4th outlet to our selector down here. Zoom in a little bit. 4 inputs now on our selector, and we're going to add a new little wacky algorithm. How are we going to do that? Well, again, we're going to need to use our modulo and our plus, and we're probably going to still need to use the same. Yes, so I can simply select a cable, hold Alt, a little green plus comes up, and I can take that and put that in there. And then I can do the same for this one here. So again, when I run that into there and the phaser into here, and then I run that into our 4th selector, 4th input of our selector, let's go back to our live tab. And let's add another, and I'm just going to call this Waz because I have a very childish sense of humor. So Waz now, we're going to Waz all over this patch. So let's see if we actually go to Waz, we actually go to Waz now, it's going to sound the same as it has been because effectively the algorithm is the same as the forwards one. Exactly the same algorithm. So we want to kind of think of some interesting ways to mess around with this, and maybe that could be we could modulate the size. Let's have a look at what this number says. This number says, can I make this bigger? Yeah. Okay. So this number says 0.25. That's because 4 divided by I can't remember the maths I did. So that is 4 divided by 16. Is that right? Divided by 16. Four divided by 16 is 0.25. Yep, this is, I'm just remembering the maths I did. So, so if I change this now to, if I change this now to 1 divided by 16 is 0.0625. So these are the kind of very strange numbers that we're working with in order to set our loop size. But if we could somehow modulate within that range, we could maybe get some interesting sort of opening and closing of the window size. You know what I mean? And that's metaphorically, that kind of is quite sound as well. The opening and closing of the window, you know, like the one in your room. So I'm going to scale -1 to 1 from 0 to whichever number this is. And I'm going to take that number from here, which that's going to go into this outlet here, the output high output value. I'm going to take that number and put that into the high output value. And then I'm going to take this excessively large number here and put that in there. And I'm going to see what a cycle can do at something like let's just say it's at 1 hertz. Let's put that in. So that is cycling up and down between, let's see what the live scope says. That is cycling very slightly. You can barely see it, but it's doing it. It's cycling up and down between 0 and 0.0625. So if I increase the number to this, start the transport. Now we're going from 0 to 0.25. So why don't we just plug that? Okay, so we need to, this one here, I'm going to put a multiply in there. Multiply by 1. So this is setting our window size coming from, where's that coming from? It's coming from this number up here. That is going to set our window size. So if we modulate the size of that with this, let's see what we get. Nothing. All right, we've got nothing. Oh, I'm on the wrong. That's because I'm not on the WAS. Let's put it to WAS and see what happens. Fucking hell. All right. Yeah. Ooh. That's it. We did a WAS. Okay. Celebration guzzle. Not of the WAS, of beer. I've got a beer open. Yeah. Wow. Okay, right, so okay, this is very silly. So that's why I called it WAS, because it's basically like whoever reads that is going to go, WAS, what is that? Oh, I see, it's silly because this person has clearly a childish sense of humor. So, but how do we like determine the frequency of that? I don't really want to just have it wazzing around in the background. I would like it to maybe make some sense. Oh. I didn't tell it to do that. I thought it's maybe making a moan of contention to what I said. We don't want to have it wazzing around in the background. Oh, I thought it was going to say that it doesn't agree with me. Anyway, so okay. So we've already discussed that the frequency of the cycle can be determined by still going. Why is it doing that? Okay, I know why. It's because the sampling hole didn't tell the WAS to come off that channel. Right, okay, right. Let's get on with it. So we've already worked out that the frequency of a cycle can be determined by a phase. So what if we were to somehow set the phase of the cycle according to something rhythmic that's happening in it? Well, something time-based that's happening in the patch as we speak. So I wonder if, let me see here. So if we, how can we do this? Let's have a look at the modulo again in relation to the number, this number here. So that is going to modulo our phaser. Let's take our phaser here and let's just have a little look at what it's doing. Just to remind ourselves, let's start the transport. Let's turn the volume down a little bit. We don't need to worry about that right now. We're going to look at some signals. So that phaser is currently being moduloed by 16 divided by 16, which is 1, which means that the phaser is not altered. If I divide it by 4, okay, so now it's going like that. So if we were to, let's just try this out on a, I don't need these big numbers anymore. Let's just take another cycle here and plug that in here and see what it gives us. Okay, so we've got some little kind of moustache sine waves there. That's because that's being moduloed. I wonder if rate might be better. Let's maybe, I'll keep the modulo there for now, but let's have a look at rate. So rate will kind of multiply or divide a phaser's ramp by a specific number. So if I was to say rate, I need this at sync lock on. Oh no, I don't know if this will work because when the modulo resets, you know what, I don't care. Let's just get on with it. So if I was to plug my top phaser into a rate like this, then it's going to divide the rate of the phaser by a number that I give it. So if I give it the number 0.5, it's going to cut it in half. If I go by 0.5, it's going to cut it into quarters. And if I go by 2, then it's going to make it twice as long. And the sync lock attribute means that if I stop the transport, which I've just done, then the phaser stops, as will the rate. So maybe I can use this to determine the frequency of the cycle that's doing the granular window opening and closing in conjunction with setting the loop size. So again, if I take that number, okay, I think I'm going to abandon the modulo idea. Let's just focus on this. Everyone look in this part of the screen. So if I take a number again and make that a bit bigger like that. Okay. And we take this number. The problem is that a phaser ramping that fast and setting the frequency of a cycle means that we're going to get, that kind of modulation. It's going to be too fast. So maybe we need to perhaps multiply these numbers a little bit to set the rate of our rate. So I'm going to multiply it by, let's say 4. Multiply by 4 tilde. That's put that in a very strange place. Okay, so now when we're on 16, which would be the original ramp phase, it's actually going to be 4 times as long. So if I was to take that and put that into the phase of our rate, now we've made our top phaser 4 times as long. So if we were to put that into the cycle and use that to set the phase of the cycle, then we're going to get a cycle that cycles. One cycle will take 4 bars. So if I go to a loop size of 1, it's still quite fast, but it's not really fast. Let's turn it up and see how that sounds with the WAS on. Yeah. Those just sound a little bit too crunchy. Okay, there is maybe a slight problem that I've set the scale here to scale it down to 0. 0 might be a little bit small. So let's say 0.1. Just so that when it gets to a smaller value, it doesn't kind of crunch out like that. Let's see what that gives it. It's not happening a huge amount, is it? Maybe I've multiplied it a bit much. Let's try 2. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced. I'm not really too sure why that's sounding that good on that. Let's have a look. All right, let's maybe try it with an absolute value of the cycle. Let's maybe try that instead. Nothing. Let's try scale 0 to 1. No. No. Okay, all right. It doesn't sound that good at that particular speed, but if we go to a higher loop size, that sounds suitably wazzy to me. Right, I think I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'll maybe endeavor to explore that idea a little bit more, but I kind of want to just keep moving and worry about some of these things later. So let's tidy up the WAS part. Let's tidy up all this WAS and sort of put that somewhere reasonably distant from everything else, but you know, enough that we can sort of understand what's going on here. These cables are looking a little bit much. So, okay, that is pretty much all I was thinking of doing for now. I think what I'm maybe going to look at next time is just some straight up audio effects that we can put in after the wave. So the wave is coming out and going into this selector here, and think about something that we can do with that. One thing that I am quite curious about is adding a slide, so that at various points you can slide between all of these different kind of playback algorithms. There's a couple of ways I was thinking of doing that. One is using the ramp on the selector. I believe this was in Max 8.3. They added this ramp time to the selector, which is really nice. So we can actually choose how long it takes to go from one selector input to another. And it's because we're using this to go into the wave tilder object to specify some different playback algorithms for the wave. If we interpolate or slide between each of those things, we're going to get some really interesting stuff. So I'm just going to explore that a bit now. So if I set a ramp time of, say, like, let's try like really high. Yeah, so you can hear as we move between the various inputs on the selector, we get this smoothing. Isn't that cool? I love that. So we can slide. I think it's in milliseconds. Let's find out. Let's go into the selector. Ramps, ramp time, fades. Does it say if it's in milliseconds or samples? In milliseconds. Okay, that's fine. That kind of makes it a bit easier. So if I was to give this like 10,000 100,000, is that, no, that's 100,000. If I was to give that 10,000 milliseconds, that's 10 seconds. It's going to ramp from one input to the next input. And indeed, will it do it with the... It won't do it with this stuff. It's just the selector. So let's ramp to the WAS now over 10 seconds. Yeah, we're totally destroying sound. That's cool. You know what? I'm going to add that in as a parameter. So let's go prepend ramp time. Is that what it was? It's ramp time, everyone. Let's see. Ramp time. Maybe we could do it in a musical way. And I guess one way to do that would be to use... We could use bars, beats, and units. So let's make a pack 0, 0, 0. And let's make a live tab, and we're going to say that we want it to be 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. So that's 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars. 16 bars is a long time, but that could be kind of cool. So let's take the symbol of that. Will this work? What do we get if we... Okay, we get the symbol there. That's good. So if I put that into the pack and put that in here, and we get... Yeah, we get our bars, beats, and units. And then we will, first of all, I must change that to salmon. That's important. That's very important. It's got to be salmon. Let's go to salmon. And we need to translate that. We'll go translate. Let's close the inspector. Not transport. Translate BBU to MS at listen1. You can't quite see that through the forest of cables, but that's what I've just done. So basically, when I put this pack, I'll move all this out of the way so we can see. When I put this pack message of bars, beats, and units into translate, it's going to translate it into milliseconds. So 1 bar is 1,700, etc., etc., etc. So we can then put that into our ramp time. But what if we don't want any ramp time? Then I guess we just say 0. I guess we add a 0. Let's see if that works. Let's go back to our live tab and say we actually want 0, which I guess would mean no time. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, 0. That's perfect. No ramp time. Brilliant. Put that in there. Plug the translate into the prepend time, and then plug that into the selector, and let's see if this works. Okay. No. Let's have a look at this. Okay, I think that's working all right. Let's try 16 bars. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, it's a little bit not quite there, but it's just an idea that I thought I would chuck in. So let's add this to our live banks. What have I just done? Yeah, okay. Let's put this here. Let's go back into the inspector. Let's go to the scripting name and let's say link to scripting name, let's say ramp time. Ramp time. Really, it's the selector time, isn't it? But we'll call it that. Let's go to our live banks here, and okay, this isn't really organized really as I was going to. I'm going to reorganize this at some point, but let's add in ramp time. Okay, it's not there, so let's just quickly save it and then open live banks again, and there's our ramp time. Okay, let us party now. Okay, let's add that to the presentation. Let's go into presentation and let's see where we can put that. It would what's that? Oh, that's the quantize for our selector. Yeah. All right, we're going to have to add that as well. That's going to be on a different page. So what I was thinking of doing was that later on, I'm going to have all the quantize selectors on a separate page on Ableton Push, and then all the main controls on the first page. So essentially the way that I would think about it is that ahead of time, you would select your quantize that you want to work with, and then go to the first page and do all the knobbing about. So we're going to need to add this as well. Let's go into the inspector, and we want to call this select. Select quantize is fine. This is all subject to change. Did I just do that in the right place? Oh, let's do it here. Select quantize. That's okay. Let's go down here. Let's paste that in there. Let's save it. Let's go to live banks, and we're going to need a second page now. So we just hit the plus button to add a second bank, and then we do have select quantize. There it is. Okay, so that's going to be added. All right, let's go back to presentation mode. Let's get our new parameters and add them up here. Let's zoom in a little bit, think about what we're going to do. So that enable button is too big, it's silly. So let's just put it something like this will do. And then we'll have our different playback selections like this. What's that? Oh, that's the enable quantize. We'll put that there. And then we have our ramp time, and our quantize can go there, and we'll call this select quantize. This is all looking okay. Let's move that along so it's a little bit more flush with everything. All right, that looks okay. So yeah, let's save that. Let's go back to Ableton and see what we've got. Nothing. Let's turn that off. So I'm just doing this on the push now. Okay, so I'm going to choose one interesting thing about this this quantize on this enable is that you can actually punch in new bits of a recording at a 16th note or something. I'm going to look into that more in the future. Probably I've been going too long now. Have I been going? Yeah, 3/4 of an hour. It's too long. So yes, but I just want to have a screw around with this. Let's set this to 1 bar, this to 8th notes, this to 8th notes, and that to 8th notes. Let's try the ramp time now, all the way up to 16ths. It's going to take 16 bars to go back to forwards. Can't tell if it's even doing it. It's almost like it's kind of morphing. Which is kind of nice. Let's go for like 2 bars. The playhead is, I'm very, very satisfied with that playhead, although I might make it a different color. probably I need to re-bang that each time that gets selected. Yeah, I'm not going to think about that now. Okay, so that was the end of part 3 of our DJ Beat Repeat Looper mashup, the Sound Destroyer thing. I'm going to go and put this on Patreon now, where if you'd like to support me, you can download this plus the other ones and indeed everything else and get involved in some cool community stuff and things like that. What else do I have to say? Nothing. Salmon and tungsten. Okay. Thanks everyone. Have a nice time. See you soon. Bye.